Hey, everybody, welcome to What Drives Us, episode 491 for Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023. My name is Russell Frost. I am your host for this week's excursion into advanced tech mobility and sustainable energy. And I have gathered about me an amazing panel to make me sound really stupid because that's really, really easy.
That's why I'm here.
Thankfully, that's why that is actually one of Patrick's purposes in life is to make me feel dumb.
It is kind of fun.
So, yeah, I get it. So let me introduce them and get on the road. The man who torments me, but also does all of our news on social media, Mr. OEVA.org, Patrick Connor.
Hello out there, alt car world. It should be a fun show. Let's get it rolling.
No arguing. All agreement tonight.
Oh.
Casey's like,
there's the first lie.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Mr. Supercharger, Kacey Green.
How's it going? Got some interesting topics for you guys today. It should be
should be
good ones to talk about.
Yes, we do. And last and not least, not only is he an auto reseller and an auto technician, he is the owner and founder of Boulder Hybrids in Boulder, Colorado. Look at that beautiful snowy weather behind him. Mr. Paul Guzik.
Hey, good to be here, and let's debunk some myths.
Yeah.
Let's debunk some myths. We're going to be doing a little bit of that tonight. Kacey has a suite of topics sort of dedicated to that. And I wanted to start off, with one of my usual things, although there won't be any viewers named personally, and I probably won't swear a lot. So just a heads up. Hope you're all enjoying the new commercial-free What Drives Us. Yay. Mm-hmm. As some of you may or may not know, I drive for a living. I pay my rent by driving a delivery vehicle, helping run a small delivery department in North San Diego County. So I am literally on the roads 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, driving all around. That unique sort of exposure seems to show me things, and it's hard, to make big general statements from just even your own life experience, even when it's extensive. Let's be legitimate. There's not a lot of other people who are spending 40 hours a week driving around on these same roads. So I guess I wanted to start with a really simple concept. Number one, all big white trucks are evil, and they should immediately be eliminated from the face of the planet.
Now, change color.
You could paint your white truck black. But we're going to get to those other colors later on. We're just going to start with the white ones.
I'm assuming that has a lot to do with the corporate and white paint being free.
I don't know. You know what? Here's the thing. As our fleets have ballooned up, as auto companies have decided that the way to make money from the customer is to sell them an expensive truck, which enjoys some federal subsidies, which enjoys some tax protections and some benefits, which apparently lots of people can get loans for a $60,000, $70,000 truck pretty easily because, damn, there's a lot of them out there. We've seen our fleet balloon up. We've seen bigger and bigger trucks. And let me be really clear right at the base. If this is like a legit work truck, like you're legit carrying stuff in your truck and people, and that is what you need to do your job, this isn't about you. This is about the 80-year-old retiree that has a Ford Super Duty that can't get it around a right corner.
Oh,
and I'm sorry, Kacey.
I said, "Oh, that's
not
pretty
you,
bad.
Is it? Okay,
no, that's not me. But I mean, we were talking before the show about how many of us spent some time in Florida, and that was a very bad, common move. Signal goes on to make a right turn, and then they come to a complete stop before leaving the road surface onto the side street or driveway, and not driveway like to somebody's house where it might be expected, but a corporate driveway where you're going into a large ass parking lot like we have here in America."
Yes, Paul?
I was just going to say, and those big ass trucks, you can't see the kid on the bicycle in front of you.
Yes.
Pedestrians, kids, anything. So what we've done is we've kind of just we've saddled ourselves with a really large gas hungry fleet of required vehicles. And again, I'm willing to bet right now that at least half of those vehicles aren't required for anything. It's somebody who's always had trucks, loves trucks, maybe moves something once or twice a year, maybe. But I look at who's behind the wheel, and I bet that if you're my age or older, you're not moving a lot of hay bales in your pickup. Not in North San Diego County.
Right.
Not
If you've got a pickup and it's got a lawnmower and tools and everything back there, that is a truck that's actually being
Drywall.
used.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you instead are just driving it into the office for your 8 to 5, it's probably not the right vehicle for that purpose. But then again, freedom. Do what you want.
Freedom. Yay! That's why we give toddlers guns and there's no drug laws in the United States, because freedom, which is not a counter to Patrick's. I'm just supporting Patrick's. Yay, freedom. Look, it's great. Freedom is wonderful, but we have to understand that sometimes collectively we don't make good decisions, and sometimes it helps to have a little bit of fencing, a little bit of regulation, a little bit of nudging this way or that, or at the very least removing the financial incentives to be irresponsible.
With freedom comes responsibility.
Do what they do in Europe, make gas $8 a gallon, and a lot less of those big gas vehicles are on the roads.
Yep.
Or tax the heck out of them.
Yeah,
you can do that, but then freedom again. But if you make it so that the gas isn't next to free when it has a real cost at the point of purchase, and environmentally and socially, like asthma.
Yes, yeah. So let's put the externality prices in there, and then make people pay the real price at the pump. Things will change quickly.
It was funny when after gas dipped down, all of a sudden, all those Hummers that had been hiding away in garages suddenly came out, a little dusty, but all of a sudden it was like, yay, cheap gas. And they're driving around. Okay, that's great. That's awesome. But anyway, that's all I got. I just wish that the people who made cars and sold them to us were more responsible. I wish that they didn't fall behind the constant excuse, well, it's what the people want. Well, it's what the people want. It's what you've lobbied for. It's what you've marketed for. It's what you've spent millions and millions of dollars telling them that bigger is safer. So yeah, it's what they want, but not really.
Also, if you discontinue all the cars and they need something to drive and they want it new, are they really getting what they want, or are they just getting what's available?
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Anyway, that's it for me. That's the only opinion that I have. Kacey. Well, and I'm going to say that the last 3 stories that we're going to talk about today are all Kacey Green. So I'm kind of turn the channel over to Kacey, and I'm just going to smile and nod.
All right. So I started out with we kind of passed the articles around before the show, and I decided that my theme would be FUD busting. 2 articles are straight FUD, and then the other one is addressing FUD. So let's start with the first, which was from Hot Cars initially, and it was the 10 most glaring problems with EVs.
Oh God! Oh God!
Let me load up this list here real quick. All right, so they claim that electric cars have steep price tags. So what I did in counter to that, I loaded up a list. I said, find me the 10 cheapest cars with incentives that are EVs, and the cheapest one was like $22,000, and the most expensive one, because it only went to 8, even though I asked for 10, was like 40 before incentives. So it was like 30 and change after incentives. And then I'm assuming number 9 or 10 would be the base Model 3 in Oregon and Colorado. So then I said, well, what is the average selling price for a car in North America? And it was $45,000. So everything on that list as an EV was cheaper than the average car in America. So
the average selling price has been creeping up and up and up over the years. And part of it is what we just talked about. A lot of it is $80,000 trucks. And that's just crazy to think that those used to be super affordable vehicles, and now they're these semi-luxury things. But that has pushed the average, and trucks sell very well in America, so that has definitely been one of the factors in raising the average sales price.
Well,
So-
and like a higher trim Sienna minivan is $60,000 now.
Yeah.
Right.
So for a minivan.
And then when you look at
Mhm.
what's standard on most of these EVs, you have to actually plus up the gas car to match the standard equipment on even the cheapest bolts. And so that alone right there makes it even worse of a comparison as far as in favor of the electric car.
Right. And what they have there was probably true in 2012, a
Yeah,
decade
when they
plus
first
ago.
came out for the public.
Yeah. And so to repeat that now, a lot of people have old data. They haven't updated their priors. And so it's going to ring true, even though this is FUD busting. So it's not true. Casey just gave you the data.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the next point he had was electric cars struggle with long charging times. And
Struggle. They struggle. They don't enjoy long charging times. They struggle with them.
Oh, it's so painful.
So I came at this one with a couple of different points. He's saying that the average fill up in the U.S. is 2 minutes, and I have a whole video on that. It's not 2 minutes. I came up with 7 minutes. You can maybe bust that down to 5 minutes if you are directly off the freeway and you use the Oasis pumps that have like the high flow, and you get right back on the freeway. But that's as short as I can. And assuming you can do a full fill, because if you do a half fill, then obviously you can shorten it. But and then I also went into explaining why that's only matters if you only do one trip a year and you don't drive locally. But if you drive locally over the course of the year, the EV is more than made that up. So you may, if you can't take an extra half hour on your trip, take something else or fly or wake up 30 minutes earlier on your trip. But he also comes at it from this weird concept of I have to go somewhere. I can only fill up on some of these cars. You got to fill up the battery twice a week instead of once a week for my commute. Like unless you are in a multifamily dwelling that doesn't have charging, it doesn't matter how many times a week you got to fill it up. And most of the manufacturers actually put in their manuals, leave them plugged in all the time when you're not using them.
This is true.
So it shouldn't really be unplugged unless you have multiple EVs and one charge point. Or
here's the perfect example: a phone. People plug in their phone at home,
and
then when they it charges overnight, and then the next morning you grab it and you go and you do what you need to do with it, and then you repeat. And if there was some phone filling station you had to go to every other day or once a week or whatever, that would be horribly inconvenient compared to what we do now. And so this mindset that people have, this FUD, is if you think you have to do it like a gas car, but it takes a really long time, that would be horribly inconvenient. But that's not the reality. That's not how you live with an EV. So again,
it
might ring true.
Tool where you had to unplug it, otherwise it would overfill and burn up.
Right. Yes, with older battery chemistry. Which type was that had a memory? And
I think it was
right. Yes. It was not lithium batteries. Yes.
Not even nickel metal.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So there's all kinds of things there that, again, if you have old data, it rings true, and it's not true anymore. That's not how things work. And so keep going with the FUD busting.
Okay. So go ahead.
No, I want to stress what Patrick and Casey have said here, because it's super important, and it's constantly we hear, it takes so long to charge them. Over and over and over again, we've heard from electric vehicle owners. Number one, let's split the group in two parts. Electric vehicle owners who rent and electric vehicle owners who have their own off-street parking.
Or on street with a light pole.
Let's say most of the early adopters, most of the people have their own home, have a place they charge them, and they go home at night. And as Patrick and Casey have said, they plug them in and they wake up in the morning with a full tank. They're never going to the gas station because they're driving to work and coming home or doing their stuff, and they come home and they plug it in and repeat. It is that really simple. If you are taking 600-mile trips every week, an electric vehicle right now is probably not for you. Okay.
And if you have a little more determination and grit and whatever, I've actually done the renter with no charging EV owner thing several times. In fact, I'm doing it again right now at this hotel. I don't recommend it unless you are that dedicated to the cause, because you do have to go out and do the fill-ups just like you do with a gas car, and they take 5 times as long because you can't leave the car unattended unless, for instance, when I had my first and the beginning of the second Volt, you can charge at work, and it's the same thing. You're just working, and when you come back, it's full.
Right.
But if you don't have a place where you can just leave it alone, it is less convenient. I will admit that. But he's not coming at it from a renter's perspective. He's coming at it as a homeowner.
Right.
Yeah.
He's
so the next,
being disingenuous. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Casey,
absolutely. He's setting up a strong man. He came up next with electric cars struggle to perform in cold weather. And I pointed out that, yes, some of those cheaper cars I pointed out in the list of 8, they have less energy, like anywhere from half a gallon of gas to 3 gallons of gas for the longest range Tesla. And you'll notice the hit from the cold more on a car that already has less fuel to start with. But if you actually sit down and do like we all used to do with the hypermiling and the measuring all the receipts and everything, you'll see that your gas car gets worse gas mileage in the wintertime too. The only thing that it has an advantage of is this: the heat is free because it's always making too much heat for what it needs.
And the tell here is, once again, the authors use the word struggle.
Struggle.
All cars perform less efficiently under extreme cold conditions. All cars, gas.
But if you got 20 gallons, you can piss it away a little bit.
Yeah.
Of course, the leading country of EVs is Norway, which is always freaking cold, and it works there, so it can work.
Yeah,
Norway and Iceland, they have no problem.
That's a super good point, Paul.
Yeah.
Yes. That alone, Paul just busted the fud. We don't even need to explain any of the physics or anything. It's just it works in Norway. It'll work for you. Boom.
Right.
It'll work in Minnesota.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Exactly. Wait for our electrician to install a home charger. Meanwhile, I have to drive 23 miles to charge. So June understands what I've been through in the past and what I'm doing right now. And if you know that it's temporary, then it's not that big of a struggle.
Exactly.
Now, like I said, I wouldn't recommend it to somebody who doesn't have home charging on the way and doesn't have a permanent point of charging, unless they you don't want the emissions, or you like the lower price. Because like a buddy of mine, he found this charging plan in California where it's $5 flat fee. So what he does is he takes his Ford Lightning, fills it up, he leaves it there, and then he comes back with the Ford Lightning, and then he fills up his Tesla and his Ford Mustang Mach-E like a tanker truck. He's got home charging, but it's that one would be like $40 a fill versus the $5 a fill for all his cars. So I get why he does that. The next item they came up with was electric car safety concerns, and then they put a video from a local news agency of a Model 3 apparently on fire. The trunk is open and there's no flames, and then there's just flames busting out from underneath the rear wheel area. And do I need to go to NHTSA and IIHS and show you the crash tests? I don't think I do.
And we've talked about before. There's hundreds of gas cars catch on fire every day in America.
They don't even make the news.
Make the news because it's so common.
Yeah.
Dog bites man does not make news, but it happens.
Exactly.
And without digging too deep into a completely empty point, humans are horrible at risk assessment.
Yes, absolutely.
We overreact to things that we shouldn't, and we ignore enormous risks that we should be concerned about. Your motor vehicle, whether it be electric or gasoline, exploding spontaneously probably should not be at the top of your list in your top 10 reasons. Okay, that's
unless there's an open recall that you're ignoring.
Fair enough.
Right. So yeah, has there ever been an electric car fire? Sure, there have been a few, but compared to gas cars, it's far less likely to happen. So this is pure FUD.
Right.
And then the retort, is a big concern you should have. Oh,
yeah. The retort from the FUDsters is always, oh, well, you're comparing new cars to old cars. No, we're comparing like for like. A 5-year-old car versus a 5-year-old car, a 2-year-old car versus a 2-year-old car, and a brand new car on the dealer lot versus another car on the dealer lot.
Yep.
And then the other thing I wanted to point out is, since they used the video of a Model 3 on fire, is up until the latest revision of the IIHS crash test, the ones that happened like last week, the week before, all of the Teslas got perfect scores all the way down all the subcategories. So you could have picked one that had a bad crash test rating somewhere on the board.
Well, another point about physics is how often do you hear about EVs that are rolling over because they have a low center of gravity? It doesn't. Where SUVs roll over all the time.
Exactly.
Doesn't make the news, So if you want to talk about safety, an EV is less likely to flip on you.
That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, and like Kacey just said, EVs top the safety ratings. So if you want to, if safety really is your concern, the only cars you should be looking at are the ones in the top 5, and those are EVs.
Yeah. Especially if you have a kid in the carpool lane or have somebody in the house with asthma.
We need the big thing to come on the screen that says "busted."
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, our graphics department quit.
Our graphics department just doesn't have electricity right now.
They went to work for Twitter, weirdly enough.
Oh no, I meant our other graphics and media person who's the power right now. So EVs have higher insurance and repair costs. This one is mixed. For me, switching to EVs, when I switched to my Volts, both of them, my insurance went down. It wasn't because I turned 25, because I was older than that at the time. And then it went down again from my 2 Volts, one at a time, serially, down to the Tesla. It went down again, the Model S. It did go up a little bit from the, up or it might have been an adjustment for all I know. It was like $5. So it could have just been because it was a new year between the Model S to the Model X. So my Model X is cheaper than both Volts ever were in insurance. And I get that some insurance agencies companies are trying to put the screws to you when they see Tesla. They're like, ooh, it's expensive to repair. Ooh, it could take a long time to repair. The long time to repair thing is every car. I had a friend with a cheapo combustion car, and it took 8 months to get the parts for a simple rear ender. Yeah. So it's not just Tesla. And then so with that, some of the insurance agencies like mine are looking at it and saying, all the safety stuff means you're less likely to hit something, and that if you do get hit, we're less likely to have to pay medical on you, and it's just going to be rear bumpers, and it may get totaled, or it may be a little bit more than rear bumpers.
Yeah, you're less likely to get rollover and get spinal injuries.
Right. Yep. And so they're seeing that overall this car is less risk for you, and so they're lowering the price.
And the car has some autonomous features to auto brake, so it doesn't hit someone else.
And if you drift out of your lane, it nudges you back in unless you yank it back again. So my insurance agency or company was on board, and they treated me accordingly. I've heard of other folks in the Tesla community and other EVs where their companies are seeing dollar signs when they see that more expensive car come across the sheet in front of them. So like, Bobby's got more money. Bobby's going to pay more money. At that point, I would suggest shopping around. The other thing to look at is your driving history does come into play. Like I took a performance driving course, and that lowered it further.
You know,
insurance is
it was called performance driving, not safe driving.
It was on a racetrack.
Yeah,
and that lowered your insurance.
Well, actually, because it was led by an instructor.
Yeah, any sort of like formal training, and they'll give you a perfunctory discount. Paul, you actually charge people to repair electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Do you have a take on this?
Collision repairs can be expensive on some of the new fancy cars, but overall they need a way less maintenance. I mean, you're not changing the oil, you're not putting catalytic converters on the car. Brakes are done with regen, so they last longer. You still go through tires, maybe a little bit more than a gas car because it's more fun to drive. But overall, the cost of maintenance on an EV is less than a gas car. Now, if you get in a collision, on any new car, parts are expensive. I have a friend with an Audi gas car. She had a minor fender bender. It was $8,000 in damage. Something crazy.
Wow.
You know. And
yeah, sometimes they'll total them if it involves any of the quarters, especially the rear quarters.
Yeah, or the headlights. I mean, we have a Hyundai Ioniq 5 EV, and the headlight got smashed in a collision, and it's like $2,500 just for a headlamp. But most of these new cars are like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're all styled and they've got
LEDs, and they're shaped to, blend into the body. So even a Toyota headlight can be close to $2,000 on a higher.
My Prius was $3,000. Yeah.
Holy
wow.
shit.
Yeah. My my Model S was 900 for the headlight. Yeah, it actually the driver's side was replaced. It's burned out.
Yeah,
not LED. It was the old HIDs.
All new cars are expensive. So if you can avoid the collision, that's the best thing. And in the Hyundai owner's case, they thought they had put the car in park and got out of it, and it went away on its own.
Oops.
So it wasn't like they hit someone by bad driving. It was just operator error, not knowing how the car worked. It was a new car for them.
So that's one to be careful with. We've lost several good people for that.
Yeah. So make sure you put your car in park before you exit the vehicle.
Verify it.
Always a good plan. Yeah.
So the next point that the guy came up with was EV battery degradation, which again is an old one, really, because if you're looking at as long as you get a car that isn't
a 2011 Leaf.
Yes.
Well, I was getting to Leafs. Once you get a car that isn't the minimum of your commute, of what you need. I'm sorry.
Can I offer a one-line defense of this?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? It is true that there is such a thing as EV battery degradation.
That is
Thank
true.
God there is nothing on an ICE car that ever wears out, ever breaks, or ever reduces effectiveness with use. This is only something that happens with electric vehicles. That's all I got.
Good point.
Yeah. So
transmissions never fail on ICE cars.
Never. No brakes. No fuel filters. Yeah. Especially serpentine belts, timing belts. So with this one, assuming that you didn't get the bare minimum of your range, like I point out that my car has, depending on how you measure it, between 7 and 9% degradation. So it was originally almost a 300-mile car, and now it's solidly 250 or less. But that's still plenty for what I need. It gets between the stations, and it does all of my daily driving. And then even while towing, it can make it between stations without extra stops. So with that one, I wanted to point out that, yes, on those cheaper cars I pointed out on the list, you want to make sure that you don't get less than a third or within a third of your range, because they do wear down. The first year, they're going to see the most degradation, and then they're rated from anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500 cycles, 100 to 0, till they have 80% remaining. So you want to make sure that in that 10 years, when you have your 80% remaining, that you can still do your drives. Now, one of the huge exceptions that comes up is the older Nissan Leafs, because that car didn't have proper anything for cooling or maintenance of its battery. For 2013, or 2012 or 2013, they added the heater to the battery, so at least the winter wouldn't destroy it as well as the summer does.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the 11s and 12s are awful. We have one on our sales lot right now. It has about a 50-mile range, but the people who are going to buy that car are going to be a family with 2 or 3 car household, probably a teen driver, and that's a perfect car for a teen driver. 50
miles. Get themselves in much trouble.
They're on a leash. They can't go too far away. They can go to school. They can go to the mall. They can go to their friend's house. And it's a pretty safe car, pretty modern technology. And like the one we have has got, 2012, 68,000 miles for $6,200. So that's a great car for a family that needs an extra car for the teenager.
Right.
So. And the other thing with that is the battery is replaceable. It's not terribly difficult. I'm not saying that's probably the best approach. I would say the best approach is probably get another used car. But with that one exception, most other cars either had some fins or some fans, or most of them have actually liquid cooling. Yeah. So that isn't a real issue. It's just something to be aware of. And like Russell pointed out, there are other concerns with the combustion car. So
the best lives are the ones.
So as you see, buy a regular car and the head gasket blows, and now you've got a $3,000 repair.
Yep.
Right. The best lives are the ones that have a kernel of truth. And so
exactly,
like we just talked about how that was a problem with the Nissan Leaf for certain years. And I had 2011 Leaf, I complained on this show quite a lot about the battery degradation, the poor thermal management, the problems that it was having. But now those are all known things, and battery degradation, like Kacey said, in the first year is the worst, and then it levels off, and so you get to a point where it's maybe has a significantly reduced range, but you know what that range is, and it's not going to drop a lot after that. So if you purpose buy it for that range as a grocery getter, a commuter, something for a teen driver, then you're buying it to fit that purpose, and it's going to be great for that. The problem is if you have expectations for something else and it's not capable of it, that's when you run into problems.
Right, and even that cheapest car, it has thermal management. And I don't even care which one it is because they're going to fluctuate as they do the price wars. It's got thermal management and it's got quite a bit more range than that Nissan Leaf had when it was brand new, straight out of the factory. So this isn't something you need to fret about. Just again, make sure that you have I would say 1/3 buffer, but 20% is what you're going to need per the battery warranties on these things. 20% extra from what you actually do.
Yep.
He then goes into EV battery recycling and disposal, which I thought was just incredibly much of a lie, because even the first Honda Insight and Toyota Prius, they actually came with a battery recycling program before the cars even got off the boat. Like you open up the rear seat on a old Honda Insight or a Toyota Prius, there's a phone number to call to get that battery back and get it recycled, because even completely dead, it's full of metals, like elemental metals that are worth something.
And I have recyclers calling us all the time saying, you got EV or hybrid batteries that you want to sell. You know, they're spent, but they're worth money, and there's no way I'm going to throw them in landfill. That's stupid environmentally, but someone's going to pay me money to take those and grind them up and use them to make new batteries. So there's a whole industry evolving to do that.
Right. And then we've even got large companies spinning up, like we've got Redwood and their competitors at that level, like huge. Yeah. They just chuck in whole battery packs and grind them up and do their processes to get them back out. So that one was a straight up lie on his part. So then he goes on finally with EV carbon footprint misconceptions. And he's thinking that we're being confused, and he says that hydrogen's better. Or no, he doesn't say hydrogen's better. He says hydrogen can be better. Yes, hydrogen can be better, but it's not. Even if you do the hydrogen solar fracking, you split your hydrogen with solar power or wind power, it's not. Because then you got to transport it somewhere. They're not using it on site. And even so what if hydrogen is a little bit cleaner in a perfect world? All of this is better than gas. And even if you run your EV directly on West Virginia coal, or I should say Wyoming, as we found out later when we found out that Wyoming was trying to ruin the world, and who cares about Wyoming? West Virginia. Is that if you run it directly on their coal, then you're still getting about 60 miles per gallon on Model 3.
Yeah, this one was just horrible. The nothing that he says in there is actually wrong, but oh man, is it framed in such a way to make the takeaway from it is that they're horrible and that they're not as good as people say they are. But he uses things like, oh, some skeptics argue this, and just all kinds of word games, and then the whole hydrogen fuel thing to say, oh, they're so much better than batteries, unless they're not, and they're usually not. But that's not the part he highlights.
No, not at all. But then on top of all of that is you've got like Patrick and I. We when I'm at my house, which I will be soon, we charge our EVs on our solar arrays. So they are even cleaner than a hydrogen could possibly be, because even if we had a way to fill our hydrogen at our house, we would then have to buy materials to make sure to bottle it up, filter it, all that crap, and it might get close, but it's not going to be as clean as our EVs powered by the sun.
Well, it would take 4 to 6 times more energy. Just creating the hydrogen is not an efficient system compared to just using electricity directly.
Yeah. What's up, Paul?
So I just wanted to say, we've talked about this before. Every year, the electric grid gets cleaner and greener. Yes. Mm-hmm. So if you have a 10-year-old EV that, say, 10 years ago was running on West Virginia coal, now it might be natural gas or wind power. So your car got cleaner every year. Where gas cars, as they get older, they start leaking oil, they start burning oil, and the low-hanging fruit, stick a straw into Texas and get crude oil out, is gone. So now the crude has to come from fracking, from tar sands, from overseas. So to get that petroleum product to run your old car that's polluting more is way more environmentally damaging than plugging a car into your solar panel house, an EV.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
So
forgot to mention that.
one thing I say all the time, Paul, so correct me if I'm off at any little bit, is that a combustion car is cleanest when it leaves the factory, assuming that it was assembled correctly, and then the next cleanest time they'll ever be is at each engine overhaul, assuming that was done correctly.
Yeah. I mean, the engine wears, oil gets through the combustion chambers, goes out the tailpipe, goes up, it ruins the catalytic converter, leaks oil onto the ground when you park it as they get older. A 10-year-old ICE car is way more polluting than it was when it was new overall.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Especially if the oil has to come from the Middle East.
One of the other lies we often hear about ICE versus EVs is also that for some reason, magically, ICE cars take almost no carbon to produce. They're made out of magic unicorn parts that are just found lying on the grounds and upcycled into cars. Whereas electric vehicles take all kinds of heinous chemicals and metals and terrible things that require child labor. And
we're not laughing at child labor, but the lie of child labor.
Yeah. There are parts of both of those statements that are true, but for the most part, they're both entirely false.
And the true part is, like, yes, it does take more of everything to make an EV than a combustion car of identical equipment and stature and everything. However, at the last time the survey was done, which was a couple of years ago now, by the second oil change on your gas car. So unless you're getting your gas car and throwing it away before the second oil change, the EV has caught up and surpassed the gas car in its effect on the environment by the virtue of its construction and fueling.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Paul, you mentioned the oil leaks, and as you guys all know, I'm with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association, and it used to be every July we would do a big car show, and we'd get our EVs. And one year we were renting Pioneer Courthouse Square, which is this area downtown. It's all covered in nice brick, and it gets a lot of foot traffic. And when we were going through and renting the area and talking about what we were going to do, and with the coordinators, the people that own the and run the events there, they said, "Oh, it's going to be filled with cars. You have to buy these pads from us to go under all the cars."
Like drip trays, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And because they were like, "Oh, yeah, you can't have a bunch of cars out there. We don't want to get oil all over our beautiful bricks." And then I explained that we're only going to have EVs out there. And they were like, "Oh, okay, we can just waive that fee and not forget about all of that." And yeah.
Nice. JT24 in the chat brings up a good point as well. He says also that all that dirty electricity used to refine oil. Oh wait, no mention of that either. So for every unit of electricity that a couple generations ago EV uses, you use the exact same amount of electricity to go the exact same distance in a gas car, because you have to refine the oil into gasoline. And it's not that that's changed that much on the new EVs. It's just that they've become that much more fuel efficient. So if you burn a kilowatt hour to go a mile in some really inefficient EV, you're burning that same kilowatt hour to get that amount of gasoline out.
Yeah, the typical oil refinery uses huge amounts of electricity to make the gasoline. However, they have their own power plant that uses their petroleum product, so it's not right. They're buying it off the public grid, so they kind of hide that.
Couldn't afford that.
Yeah,
right.
And because they're using the lowest grade petroleum, that the products they make, because they want to sell the good stuff, it's some of the dirtiest energy that's generated.
It's probably dirtier than the bunker oil in a ship.
Right. So per mile compared to grid electricity, which is often has, as Paul just said, much more green mix. The gas car is using more electricity per mile than an electric car is from a pollution metric. It's plus whatever comes out of their tailpipe.
I do have a negative about EVs, and since there's no oil coming out of them when we do oil changes, in a few years, as I stop working on hybrid cars, I'm going to have no fuel for my furnace that heats my shop in the winter. I have a furnace that actually runs on waste engine oil. So we drain the oil out of hybrid cars, we put it into our furnace. It's fairly clean, but that gives me free heat in the winter, which I'll lose as we get more EVs and less hybrids.
You'll have to convert it over to a brake fluid heater.
Yeah. You're going to have to buy a heat pump.
Yeah.
Heat pump and solar panels, Paul.
Heat pump, yeah.
That's the way to go. So speaking of the grid, our next article of FUD was letters to the editor for the LA Times. We discussed a very similar letter to the editor in the UK, where these people thought that the government was going to reach into their battery pack and steal their electricity. And I do mean steal, not buy, like what was actually happening eventually in the future when they actually come up with these programs. Steal it. So I thought that it was dumb. We talked about it. We laughed about it on this program. We might have laughed about it on the Tesla Live show as well. But now there's two of them here in the LA Times. And they're assuming the same thing. They're like, the government's going to reach into my battery pack and take my electricity. I assume that if I've bought some electricity, it's the same as if I buy some gas. It's in my tank. It's mine. I paid for it. Yeah, that's true. All you have to do is, if you've joined the program for the vehicle to grid program, which isn't really widespread yet. Yeah. So you joined up to it. You set your minimum rate that you're willing to accept them paying you back. So you want to cover the price you pay for electricity and the wear and tear on your vehicle. So you want to set it higher than that so you can get your money back or replace the battery pack or however you want to look at this thing. And then they're not going to drain you either. You're going to tell them, I need this much fuel, this much kilowatt hours to get where I'm going, and then this is how much you can use. And as Patrick can point out, even his house is on this same program. They don't take it all. They take a tiny amount. How much is the most they've ever taken from you?
9 kilowatt hours of the 40 that I have.
9 out of 40.
Yeah,
and I can opt out at any time.
All I have to do is go on the app and change the settings, and boom, it stops. I mean, it's
your limit until I say stop.
and they always notify you, we're going to do this event. This event is upcoming, and because they know from the weather when they're going to need this extra electricity because of the demands that whatever air conditioning or other things will cause. And so it's not a surprise, and you can opt out, and you can opt out to so many and still get paid for being in the program. I mean, so it's ridiculous that anybody be like, oh, they're stealing my electricity. I get paid well for that. I pay more. So I'm in this program. I get $25 a month, whether or not they use it and then if they're taking 9 kilowatt, that's 90 cents worth of electricity, and I'm getting paid $25. So, I mean, come on.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's on your house. Like, they're cognizant of the idea that if you've enrolled your vehicle in this program, that it actually needs to get out of the way from the connection.
And if your car isn't plugged in, they ain't going to be taking the electricity out of it. If you're driving to work, they're not going to be stealing your power.
I understand that Deep State is working on a plan to be able to do that magically, but I can't really talk about it right now.
You're going to have to put a tinfoil hat on your car. And
Then there's another
Patrick's
one.
very close, actually. Yeah, a Mylar survival blanket will block all the government electricity stealing waves.
Right?
Why are you laughing? Oh,
there was another one where it was essentially the same thing, but then the editor came back with about their son-in-law. They had EVs and then a Bolt, and then they did home charging. But then they decided they would do solar, and then after they did solar, they decided they would do storage. So now when their son-in-law, the whole neighborhood lost power, he and their daughter was the only one with power on the street. And then you can choose to or not to enroll your house into the same program if you've got storage in your house. And it worked for Patrick.
Yeah, I was just looking back at the logs, and I didn't even realize it, but we lost power in January. But because the batteries just took over, and it only lasted for about 15 minutes, I just never even knew.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. It should be. Yeah,
definitely. And then coming back full circle, we were talking about the truck drivers that not the professional truck drivers, but the drivers of light trucks that Russell ran into every day. Every day.
The F-250 owner.
Right. Well, it doesn't have to be even F-250. Just any car that's bigger than the person's experience and skill. So this one, as I said, was kind of anti-FUD. The title was "We Require Noisy EVs for Safety, but Let's Stop the Real Killers: SUV and Gas."
Mm-hmm.
So they're pointing out the FUD on how making EVs noisier was good for everybody. It's marginally okay for the folks that need a seeing eye dog, because now you don't have to pay for the extra class for the seeing eye dog to listen for tire noise, because the seeing eye dog just listens for noise, and you get less failing the system, less training, less room and board, all of that. So they do benefit by not having to train the dogs as long or as hard. That's the benefit right there. Not that they can actually do anything else about it.
That's a win. Oh, I'm sorry.
For their lobby, it was. So the author points out that that we didn't test this against like for noise pollution. We didn't test it to see what the effects were on everybody, including the dogs and all the other pets, about having all this extra noise in the cities. And
speaking of noise, I just heard somebody roar past Paul there.
Right. and then on top of that, as we've pointed out many times on this show, how disingenuous it is that if it were really what they were saying, then a quiet gas car, not just the Rolls and the Bentley, but as Paul pointed out, a freaking Hyundai, if it's quieter than the standard they make the EVs adhere to, then they should have they should have a bell on them as well. But they don't. They don't even look at it. They don't care. They didn't evaluate that. They didn't evaluate the noise pollution. And then they go on to point out that the real danger to pedestrians isn't that you're going to get run over by a car. The real danger is you're going to get run over by a pedestrian. And I've got a photo.
You're going to get run over by a big truck or an SUV.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, the whole point here, they're trying to say that these noisemakers are saving pedestrians' lives when they're being put on EVs. But
right, so
the data shows you who's really killing pedestrians, and it's not EVs.
Right. So
it's what you're seeing on the screen right here.
Right, on the screen right here, we have some sort of Chevrolet, probably a 250 or 350. There's a young child standing in front of it. The top of the child's head comes to the top of the headlight, but not to the bottom of the hood opening. and the caption is, "This is fine." Like, the meme with the dog on fire. In the room full of fire, sorry. And this is the much bigger issue, and this vehicle doesn't require a bell on it. And I'm not saying that this one is that quiet when it's going at 19 miles an hour or less, but the other cars that are powered by the same fuel source, some of them are.
Yeah, even if you hear it, but the driver doesn't see you, and you can't get out of the way fast enough. Yeah.
The new ones are tall enough that adults can be hidden behind the hood or bonnet, let alone a child.
I mean, vehicles with a hood that high, they should have mandatory cameras with AI that will detect a kid in front of you and put on the brakes, or ring a bell or something. Because there's a lot more of those trucks still in this country than EVs.
Yep.
I like this one too. There's a photo here. This is about all of our vehicles, but this is especially what happened to the trucks. So that same truck that was pictured earlier wasn't much bigger than this current modern Mini, and then this current modern Mini
compared to the real Mini,
3 times the size of the original Mini. Yeah,
not very mini.
Not very mini at all.
Mini compared to our bloated fleet.
Right.
Where the Camry's a huge land yacht now, and it didn't used to be. It used to be a nice little. Anyway.
And I'm not saying don't have personal choice, blah blah blah. But hey, make the bumpers line up. Make these people take on more of the externalities. Like it's clear. Like if you look at the data, they're running over more people than a silent EV is. And I'm driving a little larger EV than I probably need. But hey, add that to my insurance or like
and they do.
Huh?
And they do add it to your insurance.
They do, absolutely. And probably what's helping me with that is again the AI suite, as we talked about. The AI suite recognizes children, and in fact, sometimes I've had people come up to the car, like gate guards or people handing me tickets for something, and not speeding tickets or anything, but like literally like, hey, this is what's going on in the event. This is what's going on in the building. Here's your pass. If they don't move away directly and fast enough before I push the accelerator, the lightning pedal, not the gas pedal, and the car will assume I'm trying to run them over, and it will mush my pedal. It becomes like stepping in jello. It's like I'm pushing it, and not much is happening. It's like rolling ever so slowly. And then when it's sure that they're gone, I better be wary of where I've got the pedal pushed, because it will resume normal operation. And if I've got it halfway to the floor, it's going to accelerate.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. So usually I know what's happening. Like I give it the hey, this is how much you need to move, and it moves a quarter of what it should be moving. So then I let off the pedal until I'm sure that the car sees them gone, or I steer away from them so it knows what I'm up to. The way around that is, if it were a true emergency, say I was getting mugged, just keep doing what you're already doing, and then just put the pedal to the floor. But again, it at that point it will do what it does. So I don't recommend that either, but it's a way around it for these cars that can perceive.
I do like the not a gas pedal though. That was
The lightning pedal, lightning.
Accelerator pedal.
Yeah.
Accelerator pedal. Yeah. Apparently, that's what everybody else in the world calls it. That's accelerator pedal. Just us North Americans call it gas. To the point, there was a Tesla a drag race mode being explained, and the engineer in the seat of the Plaid, as he was talking about how it does cheetah mode and everything, he called it a gas pedal.
Yeah, come on. You work at Tesla. Get better. You
Right.
can do better than that. Yeah.
Gas pedal.
And so a station wagon would be a much better vehicle for the purposes that we use SUVs for, but nobody makes them on this side of the pond anymore. And a minivan as well, but all the minivans here aren't electric, so I'm stuck with a Model X and a Cybertruck to get my large vehicle towing and hauling needs. But I would consider a station wagon if somebody would make one.
One of the ironic parts of this story for me was that passenger cars have bumper and hood pedestrian safety requirements.
They do.
But the vehicles like that truck you showed that are more likely to hit a pedestrian get waivers for all of that, and those are not requirements. What? The vehicles that are causing the most pedestrian deaths have the least amount of pedestrian safety requirements? That makes absolutely no sense.
And,
Right.
and the F-150 is still the #1 selling vehicle in this country.
Yeah. So that would be the easiest solution right there, aside from pricing in the externalities, is forcing them to have compatibility with every other car on the road. If this is clearly being marketed for personal transport and not off-duty, off-road, heavy-duty work or heavy hauling, then it should be compatible. And even if it's got the heavy hauling and the off-road and the construction and all that crap, if it's more than likely going to be on-road, they know. Like if you're not buying it with the vinyl seats and the 20,000-pound towing capacity and the single cab with the long bed, and even they get on the road. But come on, we know. So if it's going to be used as personal transport, make it conform to the personal transport standard.
Yeah, I think 4-door pickups are the largest selling pickups now. Like, because you're carrying your family around in it.
Well,
I'm saying eliminate them. I'm just make them make sense.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it is 6:54, folks. Local time here. Let's do some shout outs and go home. I think we've indoctrinated our viewers enough. That's it. You feel indoctrinated? No, you're not. You're smarter than that. Let's start with Kacey Green.
Well, on Sundays, if you like this, I've got a similar but longer on Sundays at youtube.com at Kacey Green at 1:10 Eastern, and I hope to see some of you there. I already do see some of you guys out there, but I'd like to see more of you.
There you go. Well, thank you so much. Do watch Kacey's Sunday Fireside Chats. Are they fireside? I don't know. I probably just
not fire because I don't combust.
That's it. No combustion, Kacey. It's
non-combustion side chats.
There we
Absolutely.
go.
Mr.
The Guzik screen.
I understand you have a heck of a deal on a Leaf.
Yes, if you live in Boulder and need a third car for the teenage kid to go around town and keep him on a leash, buy her a 2012 Leaf. But if you're a normal person who needs to go 200 miles every day, don't buy it.
Yeah,
Well,
it won't do 200
normal
miles.
people don't go 200 miles.
You can find a nice used pack to go in there from the junkyard and maybe get
Those are actually hard to find. We keep looking. They're because a lot of people have old Leafs.
Same idea.
And want to increase the rate. So not so easy anymore to find. But
all right, so
anyway,
make sure you have the pack first.
yeah. If you find a pack, I can install it, but
it's
hard to find them. But if you live in Colorado, you have a hybrid EV, need some work done on it, check us out at boulderhc.com. We do sell used cars. We get some weird stuff once in a while. We got a couple Sprinter vans right now in our lot.
What?
If you want to live off the grid and get rid of your apartment, can live in a Sprinter, join the van life.
So I have this theory, Paul, that at some point in the near future, there's going to be a shitload of apocalypse Sprinters for sale.
Yes.
Because I can drive down any wealthy street in North San Diego County and see literally more dozens of them.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that now?
Well, they're a cool vehicle if you have time to enjoy the outdoors, and a lot of the people set them up so they can work with Wi-Fi and solar power, and if you're that millennial web person that can work remotely, you can live and work in a Sprinter beside a cool lake or a neat mountain.
But van down by the river.
Yeah, but at some point that gets old to people, and they want to have a real house and a backyard and a barbecue, and but we're starting to see with the economy, with interest rates, some of the people are getting rid of the toys they bought a couple of years ago that they can't really justify making payments on still. And the availability in used cars is slowly going up. Unfortunately, interest rates are still going up, and it's hard to say if it's a better time to buy a car than it was 6 months ago, but I don't think we've bottomed yet, but we'll see. On the other hand, new cars are horrendously expensive. Interest rates are horrendously high. So who's buying new cars right now? I'm starting to see new car lots have lots of inventory all of a sudden where they didn't for the last 2 years. I mean, they're still not the pre-COVID level, but there are a lot more selection and a lot less price gouging than there was a year ago in the new car world.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Do visit Paul if you're anywhere on the Front Range. Did I say rage? Front Range? Maybe you're raging. I don't know, but maybe you're on the Front Range and you can want to visit Paul. Do. I bought my car from him. You should too. That's not very accusatory. Last and certainly not least, Patrick, it's so nice to have you back. It's been a while.
Thanks.
So what's up with you, my friend?
Well, as always, I am with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. I mentioned them earlier. You can find us at oeva.org, and I blog occasionally at carswithgordons.net. You can check out, I have a 3-part series on why I like big batteries, and 1 and 2 are out, and 3 is coming soon. There you go.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. As always, I want to thank Michael Manring for his amazing theme music. Visit him at manthing.com. Buy a song, buy an album, do buy something, please. I want to thank everybody in the chat room tonight for hanging in there with us. Appreciate all of you. And that's it. That's all I got until next week, when you can download us and find out what drives us.
Stay positive, test negative.
Have a great week, everybody.